welcome back to another episode of Calm After the Storm. It's the podcast where we navigate through the path from survival to healing, one step at a time. I'm your host, Kesha Montgomery, and today's episode is especially dedicated to those in Harris County and beyond who have been affected and lived through Hurricane Beryl and the windstorm derecho, derecho was officially a year ago. We know that natural disasters come and go, and, we move past it in our own time, but the effects can linger for months, even years. So what we want to do today is kind of focus on where our individuals are, cognitively, emotionally, physically, and what we can continue to do to support their healing, but also build resiliency. So we're going to share some insight. Of course, we're going to do some practices of mindfulness. Always going to talk about our local resources that's still available to you. And, use this space as a reflection, reconnection, and form of recovery. So today we have two of our phenomenal staff from the Beryl team. I'll go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves.
Thanks, Kesha. Hi, everyone. My name is Jada Washington. I'm with Team East and a community outreach specialist.
Hi, my name is Candis Johnson. I am a crisis counselor with Team South.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me today, taking time out on this rainy day. And so, with the rain, this could potentially cause some, trauma for some of our residents. So with the year approaching for Beryl and the year already have approached for derecho, we may start to see some of the anxiety kind of have an uptick in the survivors that we're working with or that we encounter at our events. Those flashbacks may be heightened as to kind of where they were a year ago at this time. Will this happen again? We know that I've always known hurricane season to kind of start around like the 8th or the 9th, but I actually read something, I think, this past weekend where it said hurricane season starts officially on the 1st. So that is literally this weekend, right? And so with the raining season still happening, we may start to see that anxiety, maybe some depression, that post-trauma, those events kind of flashing back. And because of that, we know that it also affects their physical being, right? Because maybe they're watching the news a lot more and they're not getting out and being active. So what have you guys noticed in the last year working with the grant? And you may not have been here with us the full year, but at least 6 months, 7 months from the time that you started with the program to now. What are you noticing now that we're creeping up on a year for Beryl?
I would say based on just all of Harris County within our exact area, the east side, a lot of the community members, some of them are, starting to have experience like food insecurities and kind of just being mindful of that. They will begin to hoarder a little more when they're going grocery shopping, whether that looks like, getting more toiletries or just more than just perishable goods, but like a lot of things, even before hurricane season hits, you notice are not available on the shelves due to that. So that's kind of what I'm noticing.
Starting to see those things kind of move off the shelves,
right? Yeah.
In preparation for what's next. Are you hearing any of our survivors kind of speaking to, the anxiety related to a regular rainy day, or having those flashbacks that, is this going to happen again? Are they struggling with maybe sleep because they're worried about potential storms? Have y'all had conversations with some of the individuals recently, and is this what you're hearing in the streets?
When I'm going to do like the workshops or support groups, there are individuals or as a whole that are, speaking into like their having difficulty sleeping at night, or they may feel uncomfortable in sleeping in the same place. Like they may switch of, they sleep on their bed, they may sleep on their couch just because it's, reminds them of during that hurricane season, where did you have to find space in your home to be, considered safe?
Yeah.
Or, I had her story about this one survivor. She stated that she didn't think she would ever have to lay in her bathroom and cover it with a mattress, but that is something that, due to this time, it's, like I said, reverting back to going out and buying and hoarding things. They're getting air mattresses now because that's something they had to rely on to keep them safe and during that difficult time.
A lot of that, to piggyback on what you said, a lot of it is mostly like mental with them, because they can go to sleep and then here come this rain, and then now their house is messed up, or now they don't have the funds to fix it, and what they're going to do, the anxiety of like, how can I move forward past the destruction of my house when there's no funding, where I'm going to get some funding from to help me build up my house. A lot of that plays a part into it too. So like you can go to sleep and then wake up and now you in a puddle of water, your house damaged and all of that. So a lot of that brings up bad memories for them. That's what you call post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So a lot of them get triggered by the weather.
And we know grief. I know we spoke more in depth about grief a couple of episodes ago, but grief is not only losing someone, but it could be losing your home, right? So we may have individuals that are still out in the community that are displaced. Are y'all seeing anyone that's still maybe living with a family member or not in their home still a year later?
Yeah, of course. You see a lot of people. A lot of people don't really talk about it, but a lot of people have not been don't have the funds to fix their home, so then now they're displaced with their family members. They don't have the resources they need to find shelter, so of course they have to stay. They can't stay on the streets, so they have to stay, with family members.
Friends,
Yeah.
Another one I like to add to that, aside of family members, I've noticed recently, actually yesterday, it was went to the gym, and a lady was pretty much living out her car.
Wow.
Yeah, and she had it was kind of strange at first, but when going by and just seeing if she needed any help and things of that nature, a man that was Good Samaritan on the side helped jump her car for her, and it was pretty clear, she was living out of her car and maybe coming to the gym to take showers and stuff like that.
Was it related to the storms, or?
I would say that it was related to the storm. Going by there to speak with her a little bit, she was kind of hesitant to want to even talk about it because I guess it was just so traumatic. But yeah, I would say that was something that she did kind of touch on, and that since it's approaching a year later, you could tell it was pretty difficult for her to even want to just kind of share. But she was more so looking for the help other than just putting out her struggles at the moment.
Yeah. Wow. Were you able to kind of engage her and talk to her and maybe give her some information about TRT?
Yeah, I did share with her, with TRT, that we do have more referrals based, and currently her status, if she's living out her car. I know we have such a wonderful team, and a lot of people are well experienced in making those connections to share what is available, for Samaritans and things like that. But yes, I did share with her what our free crisis counseling, which is 5 free sessions, and she doesn't have access to a phone, kind of walking her through what the next steps are and things like that. So.
Okay, wonderful. So we're still able, you'll see a year in from the windstorm and Beryl that we're still able to provide those resources.
Yeah, still able to. Which it felt good, but also most importantly knowing that she'll be more prepared going into the upcoming storms, if there is any that was as dramatic as
derecho and Beryl.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we talk about the different phases of a disaster, and how we start out and then we get to the honeymoon phase and then we get to the anniversary phase, and so by this time the winds have calmed and there's that shock and that oh my goodness, the relief, a quick relief that the storm is gone and it's past. But then we see several months later that individuals are still dealing with the confusion or the exhaustion of rebuilding, so to speak, and they may start to feel that tension start to arise again, because it's I'm not yet completely healed or rebuilt from the previous storm, and here we are again. So we have to keep in mind, we know recovery is not linear, and it's okay if the individuals, our survivors, are still feeling some of these effects today. It's normal, and so helping them normalize that, but also providing them techniques that they can do to, you know, kind of relieve some of that anxiety and stress on the go. So I wanted to spend a little time today kind of talking about what the coping part would look like, you know, the emotional load, the cognitive load, because sometimes we can feel stuck, you know. It may not be, you know, we all have personal challenges that we deal with on the day-to-day. It may not be storm related, it may be storm related, but at times we may feel like we're stuck in a certain space or head space. So Jada, you know, kind of walk me through, you know, some exercises that maybe you guys have been able to do in some of the virtual groups, some of the in-person groups that we have had with Team East, and that's been beneficial for the survivors that we've been working with. What do those look like?
I'll definitely use, so the guided meditations are always really good. I want to say that a good go-to app is Headspace.
Okay.
So they have, like I said, guided meditation that kind of walk you through maybe no more than 30 seconds or a minute. And it just advises you with a very soothing tone. Or there's another one they use, like the white or brown light effect.
White or brown light effect, or is it the noise? Because I've heard of like
maybe
brown
it's
noise,
that's
white noise, pink noise, green noise, and all of the different noises like touch a different part of the brain.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I was trying to say. But yeah, those definitely work. Or even, you know, simply as doing like grounding techniques. So including incorporating all your 5 senses, whether that's like, what are you seeing? What are you, you know, able to touch? What are you able to smell? How to see?
So it's like taking that time. I know I've done a mindfulness technique before, where like identifying the 5 things, right? So it, like Jada mentioned, it kind of taps into all of our senses. So identifying 4 things you can touch.
Right.
So it deals with that tactile sensation. Maybe 3 things that you can hear, you know, kind of zoning out all of that extra noise, and focusing, like the room we're in today, we have the traffic. Like it's not loud and rambunctious, but you can kind of just hear the movement of the cars.
Right.
So maybe chiming into that, or if you're in a quiet room and you can hear the air condition kind of buzzing in the background. Identifying 2 things that you can smell. You know, it could be a candle. I don't know. For me personally, like I am a smelling person. So like if I light a candle that's like pumpkin spice, it automatically takes me to autumn or like fall, which is my happy place, right? So it may be, you know, July and I'm lighting up this pumpkin spice candle and drinking a pumpkin spice latte, and I'm like, okay, now it's autumn in my mind. You know, so it's just like those subtle little things can kind of get us out of that place where we're stuck, and like get us to like thinking about things that bring us joy or make us happy. And then one thing you can taste, you know, so it builds on all of those sensory, and those emotions attached to those specific sensories. So, and it's something you can do anywhere. Like you can literally pull your car over in a safe area, kind of ground for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then pick back up and like restart your day. So I definitely think that's something that can kind of assist with some of these disaster-related reactions that individuals are still dealing with. One thing that is huge is sleep hygiene. You know, no one ever really thinks about sleep as being something that, you know, hey, this can shift my mood in left or right. Have y'all identified with some of the survivors you've worked with lately that they're still struggling with sleep? I know, Candis, you mentioned sometimes, you know, sleeping on an air mattress, of course, is not as comfortable as sleeping in your bed. That's affecting their routine. Have any of the survivors actually kind of spoke to that as still being a struggle for them?
Yeah, especially like with thunderstorms and stuff, or hearing like certain noises, certain tree falls. Of course, you would hear anxiety because you know, you thinking, oh, is it affecting me? Is it affecting something?
That?
So of course, I've had a couple survivors tell me like, oh, I still have sleep trouble because I don't know whether the whether it's affected me or it's just a natural like natural thing. So I try to just like walk them through it. Like maybe you should get some rest, or maybe you can like. What you do, like the calming exercises, white noises, traffic noises. So yeah, a lot of them
have the red lights on, like certain lights helps with like how you sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of them still deal with like sleep anxiety, like sleep anxiety.
Or even I may go to sleep and something may happen.
Right.
It's storming outside because I get a little uneasy too. It rained 2 nights ago, and I mean it was like very windy. Things were whipping around out there, and I'm like, I was dozing off, but I was also like trying to listen. Like, okay,
hold on,
is this a potential tornado coming? You know, because derecho came out of nowhere. It was just, we were going about our business, and then boom, here's this windstorm that's taken out people's fences and, moved cars and broken out windows, and electricity was out. So now, even I find myself a heavy wind or heavy rain, I'm like, okay, is this gonna be something or is it not? So I mean, you never really get over that situation. But we hope that, within this last year, we've been working with the survivors, that we've given them some tools that they can kind of put in that toolkit and utilize after the program is no longer. Also, staying busy helps a lot too. If you have little micro projects, I'm not saying take on something huge, but these small micro projects that they may have around the house, maybe starting small and then going up a little bit every month or every week or whatever their pace is, to kind of reduce some of that chronic stress or those effects from that chronic stress. That can also assist with that. I know on Team East we've had an opportunity to do a lot of groups, a lot of different topics relating to disaster reactions, and a lot of the groups that we've worked with, the survivors have 9 to 5s, 8 to 5s, full-time jobs. So they're having to still go to work and put that hat on. But then at the end of the day, they're reminded of everything that is still not fixed in their home or whatnot. How have we been working through those particular populations with what they're experiencing still today?
I would say definitely some big pointers that I noticed, and participating in the support groups or presentation, that a lot of them, all of their work together, they pick up on things that they also relate to outside of work, and having to be based from the natural disaster that's occurred, or even preparation for it. So I would say, them being able to advocate and come together is something that I noticed that they are taking away from, not just when we come out and present, but them working amongst each other as coworkers, or rather they're having like some type of support group held outside. So I think that's a big one. Also, some of my favorite topics that we've touched on is self-care. So it's super big with in and out of the workplace, and of course, how do you incorporate that coming from after a natural disaster has occurred? You don't even know where to start, or
you don't. You're not putting yourself first.
Yeah,
you're not putting yourself first. So how do you begin to incorporate that?
And then to touch on like the self-care part, so this is when we need to introduce some kind of hobbies, not like the big big deal hobbies. You need so if you want to start knitting, try to get you some knitting, start doing some puzzles, start painting a little bit, just to get your mind, because it's kind of help with the winding down. So like how you said, the candles will help you wind down. Just take a little 5-10 minutes out your day just to do something that you actually like, that actually calms you. That'll help with a lot of the PTSD, a lot of the stress that comes from like the windstorms. So
absolutely. And incorporating maybe that burning the candle with maybe some journaling. Simple little things that I think we kind of, when people talk about self-care, we always go to something big, right? I need to book a vacation, or I need to go shopping. You really don't have to spend any money to care for yourself. It could be stuff that you already have in your home. It could be something just I'm gonna take 10 minutes to just do nothing.
Right.
You know, to just maybe sleep in an extra 10 minutes, or watch my favorite show on TV, and not focus on the news today. But self-care is important, but we know that it's hard when you're dealing with, I still have a tree in my roof, and taking time for yourself, because your priority is getting the tree out of your roof, right? We as human beings want to get back to normal, our normalcy. So it's hard. It's a struggle for myself, to just take that 5-10 minutes a day and care for myself. But those are very good tips. I believe our survivors can really enjoy and utilize. So we've also had, Candis, I know you guys have y'all had the opportunity to do groups out in the community with the seniors?
We've had a couple support groups with seniors, and they deal with, believe it or not, even though they're in like senior citizen homes, they still deal with the backlash of the storms as well. Because you never know, like, just because I'm in this facility, we have this, but sometimes that doesn't work. That doesn't pull through just because you're in the facility. They still have experienced power outages. They still experience food loss. A lot of things that they're
medications that need to be cooled in a refrigerator.
Right. So they still deal with those type of things, but you go and you talk to them, and then they feel comfortable. Okay, we still going through this. I still have these type of PTSDs where sometimes it is hard to sleep when the rain is pouring. Sometimes I'm like, dang, am my refrigerator gonna go out and I'm gonna have food, or my food, I'm gonna have to throw my food away. Just a lot of things like that. And then they're away from their loved ones, so then they're worried about, is my loved one?
My kids doing, and my grandkids.
Do they have power? Do they have food? Are they going through like certain things? So a lot of older senior citizens, they deal with a lot as well. So in those type of groups, they express those type of things in those type of groups.
I know a lot of our senior groups were some of my favorite groups that we've had the privilege to work with. But we do find that it's layered. It's them also going through what they're going through. So that's their response and their reactions to the storm. But then there's also the worry of, my grandkids and my adult children. Did they lose power? Did they lose food? How are they going to be okay? So it's kind of like working through the different layers. And then also the loneliness. Right? The loneliness of being detached from their family in this instance. When there's a natural disaster or there's a storm, you want to be with your family. But unfortunately, a lot of times we're disconnected from them because the roads are flooded, or we can't get to them, or the seniors don't drive, or it's just not safe to do so. So also allowing them to express themselves in the groups that we're holding as individual teams for Beryl and Derecho. It's a safe space for them to come and maybe pick up on some of these skills that they could continue to use after our project ends, and also letting them navigate through that as the facilitators of the group. So a big part of what we do is empowering them to be able to identify what they need, what their community needs, and also helping them get to the point where they're comfortable with still gathering. Because community is everything, and you'll see every time we have a natural disaster, the beauty of it is that the community always comes together, right? And so allowing them to be the facilitator and still gathering their community, whether it's just their little small group at the retirement home or their community activity center that they go to twice a week. And even, not just the seniors, but also, the schools that we work with and identify with. What tools and what skills can we give them to continue to utilize months after we're gone? So any examples of some things that your teams are working on to leave that legacy?
Let me see. I know some things we do is we try to go out into the community and kind of like see what other resources there is for like senior citizens, or like, so if they're in the home, we try to see like what can come to them versus how we like, because they can't come out. Some places they can't come out, they're just in there. So we find like places or things that come to them so they can have like certain activities, certain like, what if they don't have dental care or something like that. So we kind of like go out there and research things that that comes to them.
Yes.
That's a lot of that has to do with that. So
yeah, working with the Legacy Project, we were able to identify resources that we didn't even know about.
Right.
You know, and it's like there's so many different things out there that's available in Harris County, in Houston area. And being able to give them, you know, maybe the neighborhood community centers.
Right.
A lot of times when the storms come, these community centers are turned into disaster recovery centers, which is a huge hub for resources.
Right.
So, you know, setting aside a list of those that's available. The team that we've worked with has been, well, the quadrant we've been working with is the east side. So identifying all of those community multi-service centers. And sometimes these particular centers also host those support groups for the survivors to be able to go to. United Way is another one that always offers different resources. 211 you can call and gather information about the local food pantries and the churches and the communities that have been able to assist. I know we have gone out to several food distributions, which have been amazing, because a lot of times the survivors don't even know these exist.
Right.
You know, Baker Ripley has been huge with the food distributions that we've gone to and been able to kind of touch on. You know, a huge part of Beryl was losing all of our electricity, so losing all of our food, and being able in the clutch to say, hey, I know Baker Ripley, they have these food distributions twice a month, you know, at all of their locations, whether it's Pasadena, whether it's Aldine, I can go there and bring a cart and get food. So just being able to keep them abreast to those resources. Of course, not just food resources, but also mental, emotional resources, kind of work through some of the cognitive pieces of that. Being able to call someone when we're no longer here, when our crisis counselors are no longer here for them. What are some resources that you have found that have been very helpful to continue to refer our survivors to even a year later?
I definitely always revert individuals to the Harris Center for Mental Health and IDD for more prolonged services. Even working with a partner, like for example, the Bread of Life. They're really good, you know, assisting with, you know, finding homes and other areas such as like food and touching on that capacity of like your mental as well. One thing I had just thought of in regards with the schools, because I feel like such a great point, being, you know, working out in the east side of town, Harris County, there's a lot of big population of Spanish speakers or those that, you know, may not are bilingual, and a lot of the times, going back to the schools, the children are their translators. So finding the appropriate resource to connect them with someone to be able to relay those messages to their parent, even when we're not here, I feel like it's a big thing.
Absolutely.
So tying into like Baker Ripley, it's a ton, so many. But yeah, so just throw it at that.
A lot of, I know you said other than food, but the food pantry as well. The food pantry is a big one, especially on the south side. They have a lot of, you can come in there, they really all over, but the food pantry, go in there, you get free food. Like she said, like a senior citizen home we went to, they were more Asian, of the Asian community. So we found a dental place that comes and bring the dental work to them.
Mobile.
So wow. It's a mobile dental place, and it comes to them. So you can't come to them. You can't leave out. They can come to you and do all the dental work in your room, basically. Wow. Yeah. So that was unique, because I was like, I didn't even know that they can even do certain things like that. Yeah. So like we had an event at this. I forgot the name of the place, but the lady, she came in there, she had the little toothbrushes and she had the little stuff, and they came in there and told them like, oh yeah, you know, if you can't come to us, you're not able to be mobile to come to us, we can come to you, we can do all your dental work here. And I just feel like that was so cool. I feel like that was like,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
any mobile resources would be great.
The Food on Wheels, we had the opportunity coming across someone that did something similar. So it's like they cater to the needs, whether they're senior citizens or, you know, all type of populations and what that may look like. for if you don't have access and not able to cook,
Right.
or needing someone to come over and assist with how many meals per day, like portion control, all those things. So I would say that was a really good.
And what's the name
resources.
of that one?
I want to say it's Food on Wheels.
Food on Wheels.
I
Okay.
believe so. And there's tons just kind of branching from that to their own entity and like the services they provide or people they tend to cater to. But it hit me when you said coming to their homes. Like that's a really big one. And then of course, not even just being there to cook for them, but also being able to clean up and assist and making sure that they have like safety proof in their kitchen. And if that's something that they notice up front, they'll find the appropriate resource to
Okay.
help assist.
Wow, that's awesome. That's why I said we never knew so many resources existed in the Houston-Harris County area until we actually started working on, we know the go-tos,
Right.
but there's so many more out there, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of develop that information to kind of leave that legacy with the community when we're no longer here. So
A lot of it stems from if you just don't know, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Right.
So if you go into like your local McDonald's, ask them, do y'all have some certain resources? Or go to the Goodwill, ask them, do y'all have some certain
Networking,
resources?
right? Yeah.
So just asking. It don't hurt to ask. Just a yes or no. It's all you can receive. So
just that empowerment piece.
Yeah.
And we're always, we want to empower them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, if you don't ask, you won't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we put in the legwork too. So we go in there and just be like, because a lot South just did a thing where we just go in and ask, like, do y'all have certain resources? We just want to add you to like our resource list. And a lot of them specifically, a lot of them do. Like a lot of them you just don't know because you don't ask.
Absolutely. And that's a huge part of canvassing.
Yeah.
Is going out to some of these places and saying, are there any resources that I'm unaware about? This is my program. This is what we do.
Right.
Do you have any resources that we can add to our list to further help our survivors in Harris County?
Right.
So that's exactly what canvassing is. But yeah, if anyone's in Harris County and they're still navigating through the resource world, because we know that's the hardest part, is identifying those resources, right? And a lot of people may be like, yeah, that storm was a year ago. I mean, what could possibly still be available?
Right.
There are things that are available year round because we face storms every year. Annually. We have a hurricane season. And now, lately, we've been having them in between, right? So, just letting them know that there are still resources out there that are available. Of course, Jada, you mentioned the Harris Center for Mental Health and IDD. Of course, after the crisis counseling program, individuals always want to know what's next. I want to continue. I've identified there's some anxiety, and I'm still struggling with that. I can go. Where can I go? So long-term care, more prolonged care, they can definitely call the access line, and it's available 24/7. We talked a little bit about the United Way, 211, all kind of services. If a storm does come, they will have information about the disaster recovery centers, DRCs, the community centers that are maybe hosting a shelter, emergency sheltering. The ones that, this is the one that comes up a lot, is identifying, I have a dog.
Yeah.
I need to bring my dog with me. I cannot, leave my dog behind. There's no one else to take my dog.
Family too.
Their family too, and so where can I go if my house is flooded with me and my dog or me and my cat? So 211 be a great outlet for them. But what we've also found in doing this great work for the last year is churches. The churches are a huge support, right? Whether it's, just kind of navigating, sometimes they host food distributions as well, food pantries. So identifying those churches in your area. And I think that legacy project that we're working on will be able to assist individuals in the community with those things. And so what we do know is that, anytime there's a storm, Houston does respond. So seeing the news from a positive light, not just tracking the latest storm or what's going on, but they also provide those emergency resources. Hurricane season's coming up. This is what you can expect, or these are some numbers you may want to keep handy, or preparing for that. Because we come in on the recovery part to further expound on those resources. So
I want to ask you guys, when you think about, I guess, the whole idea of following, you know, disaster and then you're recovering and everything, a lot of times we're kind of just going with the flow and we're, you know, going off of like faith and whatever is happening. Mm-hmm. But how do you feel as though people can deal with the idea of walking into the unknown when it comes to the storm, especially when it comes to going back into another storm season? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people are like, am I going to go through this again? Right. You know, am I going to be able to bounce back from this? Like, have I learned from things last time? So have you guys ever kind of encountered that or, you know, ran across that phenomenon when you guys are canvassing or just talking to people?
I definitely will say I have. At the end of the day, my approach to it is that we're all human beings that will find ourselves revisiting our past, whether that's trauma, whether that's with the storm. So my big, you know, outlook on that when talking to survivors or just community members is really encourage them to be present in the moment. Mm-hmm. Just because, you know, it's natural to have all these emotions tied to when the anniversary is approaching and such, but how can we, you know, us being part of TRT, we play a very valuable and big role in what we go out and do. So what does that look like after we're no longer, you know, with the grant here, and that we can leave the legacy along with the project that we've built of resources, but to know that community members are still going to unite and be as one to empower each other and, you know, have the time, the energy to say, like, you know, I know that we may get hit again or there may be different type of storms, but how are we going to be able to still be resilient and get through this? So I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's kind of my approach to it on just, you know, being a part of this amazing CCP program and just the overall aspect of what that looks like with time, whether that's 3 months, 5 months, and so forth. So I think here we are, a year later. I think the biggest thing is making sure everyone is able to be heard and feel empowered through it all.
And I think that's kind of been our take the entire time. When I came on board, I was with the derecho storm and then moved over as a team lead to the barrel storm. And we've always, you know, people say stand on business, we stood on resiliency. Right. We stood on empowerment. So I think from day one, we have set the tone of this will happen again. Right. We know we live in South Texas. We know we get a hurricane season every year. We don't know when, but we know that it's a high probability that it will happen again. And so it's empowering and equipping them with everything that they need from day one. And so what we've done throughout this entire project is build on that. We've given them more resources to put, you know, aside. We've given them more tools that they can use to put in their toolkit. So just as Jada mentioned, when we're no longer here in a couple of months and there is a new situation that may be arising, hey, you have that toolkit, you know, metaphorically. You have your toolkit. Pull out those resources, unite your community, work with your community, build a neighborhood coalition, you know, so that you guys can rely on each other.
Pick to piggyback off what y'all said, a lot of it, so remember that the most important thing about this is your mental. Once you kind of regulate yourself about the mental, because a lot of things, like a lot of over-exaggeration happens when we think
in our head, right?
We overthinking, like, oh my God, like you said, the hoarding of supplies. So once we get our mental in line, which is kind of easier said than done, but it start with your mind, because once you start overthinking, oh, I need this, I need that, I need this, so we try to focus on regulating your emotions first. Let's let's breathe through it. Like start with the exercising. Let's start with the 5 senses: touching, tasting, smelling, all of that. So let's start with the mental part first. Let's get our mental in order, because like you said, it's going to happen again. Sadly, it's going to happen again. So let's start with the mental. Let's mentally prepare, but don't mentally overcompose, like overthink. Don't mentally overthink.
So that it handicaps you in moving past that and doing what you need to do, right? Absolutely. All right, well, healing takes time. We know that, right? Just as you mentioned, Candis, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But we have done a great job with Texas Recovering Together, with the crisis counseling program, and providing that care to our community, providing those tools to our community, those resources to our community. And we know whether the storm was last year or we're bracing for this year's storm, the journey matters. And that journey incorporates everything that I think we as a whole have provided our community. And we're not defined by the last year's storm because we're stronger. We've built that resiliency. So, hopefully individuals listening today can get the resources and the tools that they need to equip themselves further, even after we're no longer here. And I know I've probably said that several times in this episode, but unfortunately all good things come to an end, but we want to leave that legacy and be able to give our community what they need to continue to heal. So thank you guys for joining today's episode of Calm After the Storm. Those listening, please share this episode with someone that may need it. Follow us for more tools, resources, and stories of resiliency, and we will see you guys next month. I'm Kesha Montgomery, and until then, you guys be safe. Have a great day.
Bye.